let's talk about your first collection, Wet Wool, and which are a handful of the pieces are scattered around the shop here. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you free form tell us about this collection. Like, where did it start? Why? You're talking in the interview, you were talking about you were experimenting with materials and like tinkering with stuff, and then so what were you doing in that stage? What were you the experimentation stage?
Mm-hmm.
Was this the concept, or like how did you get to this?
I guess it all sort of started again with like a discovery of like words, and kind of like with the name Rest Energy. I discovered, on a fabrication job, I made this pedestal for an art exhibition here in LA that was a small like artist run space, and the show was called Wet Wool, and the work wasn't necessarily immediately tied to that title. I'm not even sure exactly why it was called that, but I thought that was interesting. I'm like, whoa, what is that? That's like kind of like seductive in some weird way, but it's also like this like weird thing, like wet wool. Like it's like, it kind of feels weird, nice but weird to say, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like that. And so then I just started researching, and when I say research, I mean like Googling wet wool and learning about wool, and like, you know, a little bit of its history, and like how it's been used in the past. And I started reading about how when wool becomes wet, it actually becomes like warm. That's why you find it in like, that's why it's such
hiking
a magical.
socks.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this like kind of almost mystical, natural organic fabric or material, you know.
Because most fabrics are the opposite. Most fabrics
Yeah.
are wet and cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it also, if you like pull it or stretch it, it gets stronger. And I was like, that's kind of a cool like analogy. You know, this thing that looks as though it's like in like this like disaster, in this kind of like place of like usedness or kind of like not great, is actually an analogy for maybe it becoming stronger or doing the thing that it needs to do.
Yeah.
So it like, I like that idea of something looking as though it's like a bit of a mess, but is actually kind of like living its best life, you know.
That's really interesting.
So